So the Indian women's cricket team have completed what can only be described as a dominant win in the one-off test that they were playing against South Africa, and it continues, you can say, what's been a rather good home series for the Indian side. They won the ODI series 3-0. Now the one-off test is done with a 1-0 victory, and the T20I series is coming up next. Hopefully that goes well as well. But we're going to discuss and break down what has been a thoroughly dominant, comprehensive, one-sided win for the women's team. And I think it's fair to describe it as such.
Absolutely. I think the way they performed well in the ODI series, I think it was basically the sign of things to come in the one-off test, and wrapping up the test in not even 4 days, I think in pretty much 3.5 days, just goes on to show the kind of dominance that the India women's cricket team have displayed. And whole credit, I think, goes to Sneh Rana here. She has bowled those tireless spells, caught those crucial 8 wickets. More importantly, I think the turning point of this match was not really India, scoring those 600 runs. Obviously, that's a major talking point,
Yeah.
with South Africa failing to strike at crucial intervals. But I think it was more about Sneh Rana's 8 wickets, because specifically on the first opening session of day 3, had South Africa not suffered that collapse, who knows, things might have been different, and who knows, we might have, had our day 5.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because if you go back to the start of day 3, it did look like South Africa had managed to claw themselves back into the game, because despite the fact that they were staring at a 600-run deficit going on to bat first, they actually ended up doing pretty nicely to come back. And I think they were aided by the fact that the Chennai wicket was unusual in the sense that we always expect Chennai tracks to spin a lot. This one, though, I think if you settled in, definitely it was a good batting surface. And then for them, the key would have been to ensure the deficit became, let's say, as minimal as possible, because again, 600 odd runs, not an easy one to overturn. But that collapse, that key collapse that you mentioned, I think changed the game, because after that, it always was India's game to lose, because once you enforce the follow on, that's pretty much how it goes. It didn't help that come the second innings, the pitch finally started to break up a bit, I think, and you saw a lot more assistance there for the spinners.
I think the opening sessions across the past 2 days were very crucial, because as you said, the Chepauk wicket, it was a very unlike Chennai track. Wasn't really that much of a turn. There was some invariable bounce, but then the ball was holding on to a bit. That's where I think South Africa did manage to get those crucial runs and those big knocks. Credit to them for the fight back, but then they took 2 innings to overall India's total, which goes on to show that it's obviously in women's cricket you really need more matches so as to gain more experience, not just for the top nations or the big three, as we say, Australia, England, England and India, but then in case of South Africa also, who are going through some kind of a transition across formats.
Yeah.
So that's where I think the need of the hour is to make sure that there are more and more women's tests and more 5-day tests, because before this, the maximum number of tests that the Indian women's cricket team has played were 4-day tests.
Exactly. So I think now you're seeing a bit of a sea change in that regard, that at least, in these tours you're having these one-off games, and it's a start. But I think that is something you'll need to expand on a lot more, because you could at times see the inexperience.
Absolutely.
And that is true for both teams, by the way. There were times when even with the Indian team, I felt that, considering the kind of starts you got to those runs, sure, but the small little moments you see, and you're like, these are players who aren't exactly well versed with playing test cricket, and you don't blame them, because it's barely played at the international level. But overall, very good victory. I mean, wrapped up in clinical fashion, because they only needed 37 runs to win, and done so with 10 wickets. It was a very easy victory.
And this is also, I think, India's, I would say, a rise in Test cricket, because last year they achieved successive victories against England and Australia
Correct.
at home, and those were really those crucial victories that came at the very right time, specifically knowing that the BCCI had announced a big calendar for the India women's cricket team, which features a lot of Test matches. And now this win over South Africa, I think this is just a testament to the Indian women's cricket team's rise. And the best thing that I really like about this team is that there is some kind of stability.
Yeah.
The players are pretty much the same across formats. The age is on their side, so definitely there's a bright future for them.
Yeah, I mean, and personally, if you ask me, one of the things that could probably motivate more Test cricket for the women's teams is if India start doing well there, because again, then fan appetite for that increases. Already, you are seeing that women's cricket has seen a sea change because, of course, of the relative success. What really sparked it for me was that run to the finals in 2017. or was it 2018? My memory serving me.
2017.
Yeah, so 2017 they made it to the final. That really sparked a lot of interest. You eventually reached a point now where you've played two WPLs and the league shows no signs of slowing down. But I think if you want to bring in red ball cricket a lot more, you're going to have to focus on the domestic side and, of course, more importantly, ensuring that international players will, in fact, be getting that opportunity as well. So that's it.
Such performances, specifically are good for attracting new fans, new casual fans, and even fan retention also. Because
Exactly.
if you do not win consistently, the fan interest will also
Will
lose.
wane.
Somehow, people are starting to know about the fact that okay, there was a women's T20 challenge. Now we have the WIPL. Was that two successful seasons?
Yeah.
Then the women's team is also doing well, not just in the bilaterals but in the mega events also. Yes, they have fallen short at the semi-final on the final stage, but then I think those big victories will come because India have a core which can last for another 5 to 10 years.
Exactly. So that's it. It concludes and sums up our coverage of this one-off test. But this series still has three T20Is, and the first one starts this Friday. So we'll cover all of those as well. You can stay tuned to us here at Sports Today. The men's T20 World Cup just concluded, but the cricketing calendar doesn't really ever stop. Because don't forget, there's a Zimbabwe tour coming up as well. So stay tuned for coverage of that and everything else. Of course, live dugout later today. Don't miss it. We'll be back with all of that and more. Right now, though, from Siddharth Gulati and me, it's goodbye.